Hello mga Ka-ECOP, I am Jose Roland Moya. The Employers Confederation of the Philippines, or ECOP, is here to ensure that your voice as employers is heard, articulated, and acted upon. ECOP addresses industrial relations issues, promotes social dialogue, and fosters proactive collaboration among employers and stakeholders. We are here to help employers become responsible, sustainable, and inclusive. ECOP has dual functions. First is its advocacy and lobbying role on labor and social policy issues on behalf of employers before the executive and legislative branches of the government. Second is the delivery of direct services, including training, capacity building, consultancy, provision of information, among others. By the way, huwag po kayong aalis, manood po tayo sa buong programa. Sagutin ang aming ECOPlus question for the day. I-post ang tamang sagot sa Facebook account ng ECOP at manalo ng papremyo. May I introduce to you my co-host in today's episode of ECOPlus Amplifying Your Voice, Mr. Anton Sayo. Anton is the chair of the PCCI Committee on Intellectual Property. He is also chairman of Alay Buhay Foundation and governor of the Employers Confederation of the Philippines. Anton is also the chair of the ECOP Committee on Skills and Education. Hi, Anton.
Hello, Roland. Mga Ka-ECOP, welcome to ECOPlus, Amplifying Your Voice every other Monday at 5:30 p.m. Ang episode natin ngayon ay tungkol sa skills and employability. Pag-uusapan natin ngayon ang kahalagahan ng reskilling at upskilling upang lalong ma-preserve at maitaas ang employability ng mga manggagawa. The COVID-19 pandemic has accelerated the pace of the fourth industrial revolution, which requires new skill set from the workforce. Let us listen to various perspectives, ideas, insights about skills development and how it promotes the competitiveness and sustainability in business from local and international experts.
Ang unang makakasama natin ay si Ms. Rosanna Urdaneta, Deputy Director General of the Technical Education and Skills Development Authority, or TESDA. Magandang gabi, DDG Rosanna. Welcome to ECOPlus Amplifying Your Voice. Why don't you greet the viewers of ECOPlus Amplifying Your Voice?
Good evening, Roland and Anton. Isang magandang gabi po sa lahat ng mga viewers ng ECOPlus. In behalf of our Director General, Secretary Isidro La Peña, I would like to extend our gratitude to the Employers Confederation of the Philippines for inviting TESDA in today's episode.
As we continue to move towards the digital future fueled by the fourth industrial revolution and accelerated by the COVID-19 pandemic, what are the plans of the government to support the shift of the workers to and creation of a new breed of 21st century workforce?
Thank you for that. Hindi lang actually yung COVID-19 or even the fourth industrial revolution. In the Philippines particularly, we are also challenged by climate change, of course, and technology advancement. Nakita nyo naman yung katatapos lang na bagyo, yung bagyong Odette. It has really devastated a lot of our infrastructure as well as yung mismong natural resources. These trends would have an impact on how the vet system should respond, because in all of the things that we see now in our environment, the vet plays a very important and pivotal role. That is, of course, to produce the rightfully skilled and competent workforce for the labor market in order to support economic growth, especially in the post-pandemic recovery. Alam nyo naman, Sir Anton and Sir Roland, that TVET has a two-pronged strategy. TVET for global competitiveness and workforce readiness, and TVET for social equity and poverty reduction. Tried and tested na to ever since na namin na two-pronged strategy. So as an authority, TESDA ensures That is, the TVET sector responds to the requirements of the industry and the world of work. Wala po kaming ginagawang curriculum or training regulation na TESDA lang ang gumagawa. We usually and most of the time consult the industry. Yung training regulations namin are done by industry experts. Nagfa-facilitate lang po ang TESDA. So, much of the things are still desired. Pero we are confident because we have the National Technical Education and Skills Development Plan. Yung NTSDP, parang yan yung Biblia ng buong TVET sector. Yung blueprint, actually, ng aming mga gustong gawin at gustong mangyari sa TVET. Ito ay mga parang Biblia ng TESDA, ng mga stakeholders, ng industry, employers, at of course, ang pinaka-importante, ang academe din. Yung NTSDP has a goal of vibrant quality TVET for decent work. I will emphasize decent work and sustainable inclusive growth na gusto natin makamit sa natin sa TVET. Gumawa din ng TESDA, nagbumalangkas kami ng TVET 4.0 framework na naka-anchor sa NTSDP, particularly on ensuring the preparation of the workforce for the 4th and 5th Industrial Revolution. Yung framework na to parang contains specific measures for us to ensure the right competencies are imparted to TVET learners. Meron kaming framework na ginagawa, ang pinagbabasehan. Ang sinasabi namin, ang TVET learner sa 4.0, dapat may competency sa STEM, dapat may competency sa 21st century skills, at dapat din sa socio-emotional skills. So yung tatlong aspeto na yan ang tinitingnan ng TESDA at ng industriya para talagang respond doon sa industry requirements. So, doon sa sinasabi ko, going back to the 4.0 framework, nakalagay dito na ito mga requirements ng learners, so yung mga requirements din ng trainers, dapat tingnan din namin yung mga requirements ng institutions, modernization of institutions. Dapat ang mga facilities nag-offer na ng higher level qualifications. And of course, sa mga assessors din dapat, in fact, ina-encourage namin yung mga industries to become assessors themselves, yung mga industry experts, para talagang maswak at malesen yung mismatch, di ba? Bata pa lang tayo, Sir Roland and Sir Anton, nandiyan na yung mismatch eh. Hanggang ngayon, may mga apo na ako, may apo na ako, nandiyan pa rin ang mismatch. So, TESDA had also endeavor to reactivate and fortify the creation of industry boards. Marami na po kaming na-encourage na industry boards sa iba't ibang region. Bakit ganito? Because we now are trying to espouse area-based, demand-driven TVET. Sa pagkakaalam namin, iba-iba, may mga uniqueness ang bawat area. So, iba-iba yung requirements ng industry. So, iba-iba din yung growth aspects nila and aspirations. So, inaalinsunod namin sa provincial development at regional development plans yung area-based demand-driven namin. That's why nag-expand kami ng ecosystem ngayon sa TVET sector. At ang talagang pinaka-crucial dyan ay yung industriya at yung academe at other government agencies because TESDA alone, hindi kayang gawin yan lahat.
Yeah. DDG Rosanna, maraming salamat sa pagpaliwanag mo doon sa strategy ng TESDA upang ma-embrace yung technical vocational education, yung pag-i-involve ng industry sector, at marami pang iba. Gusto ko po munang pagtuunan yung paano po ba inihahanda ng TESDA ang mga job seekers at pati na yung mga meron ng trabaho upang sila ay may kaukulang kasanayan. Lalo na nabanggit po kanina yung 4th Industrial Revolution at yung parating pang 5th Industrial Revolution na nagbabago yung skill set na kinakailangan ng labor market at paano naman nila ma-access itong mga programang pinoprovide ng TESDA?
Sir Roland, actually yung guiding principle namin ngayon is TESDA abot lahat. So, as much as possible, we want to reach out sa lahat ng mga job seekers as well as yung pong mga kababayan natin na mayroon ng trabaho upang sila ay bigyan ng kaukulang kasanayan na kinakailangan ng labor market. Unang-una po sa mga programa namin, yung scholarship programs namin. Ito kasi yung sinasabi that we have to make training accessible to all. Kaya nga TESDA abot lahat, yung inclusivity. So the main intent po ng aming scholarship ay ma-expand nga ang access ng ating mga kababayan sa TVET o training programs upang sila ay maging produktibong mamamayan at mas mapataas pa ang antas nila sa trabaho. Meron din kaming, madami kaming scholarship like yung Training for Work Scholarship Program. Ito ang Training for Work for TVET courses sa priority industries na and key employment generators. So usually, pag naglalabas po ang National Economic and Development Authority ng key employment generators, dyan namin tinutuon yung mga training program namin. Kasalukuyan, nag-identify din po kami ng 7 priorities out of the key employment generators na binigay ng TESDA para doon po mag-focus ang mga scholarship namin. Meron din kami sa community-based, yung special training for employment programs na nag-encourage naman na gumawa ng mga self-employment at entrepreneurship activities ang mga bata. Yung PESFA naman po is the Private Education Student Financial Assistance for Learners in Private TVET Institution. Yung WACTEA, ito po yung universal access na to quality tertiary education. Kasi ang TESDA po, hindi lang yung mga short-term courses. Kung makikita nyo po yung Philippine Qualifications Framework, 5 po ang antas na bahagdan na tinatawag na tinutukoy po sa Philippine Qualifications Framework. Meron pong 4th at 5th na levels ang PQF sa TVET po na sektor. Yung 4th and 5th, ito po yung we have to produce yung new breed of technologies and technicians na parang konti na lang kasi we're trying to also work it out with the Commission on Higher Education, yung pong Philippine Credit Transfer System. So yung mga graduate po sa diploma programs or higher level qualifications ng TESDA, if they wanted to pursue higher education, makikredit po ang lahat ng mga kukunin nila ng mga units doon po sa higher education. Also, yan po yung UWACTEA na tinatawag. Ang pinakabago po at ginawang batas ay yung tulong trabaho scholarship program. Ito po yung nagsisik na mag-reskill at upskill yung ating mga kasi if we're talking about yung after the pandemic and then we're trying to move towards the now normal direction. There are those na mga businesses po na nag-close. So nawalan po ng trabaho yung mga mamamayan natin na iba. So ang ginagawa po natin is nag-o-offer po sa TESDA ng mga reskilling programs such that magkaroon po ng bagong skills ang mga kababayan natin. Yung upskilling naman po, kung meron pong mga pag-a-advance sa technology ng mga ating mga kababayan, mga existing workers, then we offer also upskilling courses. Meron din po kami yung mga super scholar, mga namin to partnership with DOTR. And of course, yung pong RESP or Rice Extension Service Program, which is a component of the Rice Competitiveness Enhancement Fund or RCEF ng Department of Agriculture. So, bawat po scholarship have different purposes and intent. So, lahat po niyan merong kaakibat na mga kliyente. Kasi nga, ang sinasabi namin is yung TESDA abot lahat, so lahat po ng sektor ay dapat abutin. Kasi po nung minap namin yung client beneficiary system namin. Nagulat po kami lahat dahil kailangan pa pala namin tulungan ang 45 million na mga Pilipino kung tutuusin. So 2 to 3% pa lang po ang naaabot ng scholarship namin. Yun po ang nais namin also na iparating sa mga kababayan namin kung gusto po nilang magkaroon ng scholarship ay mabisita po ang regional at provincial offices namin across the country. You may visit also our website kasi nandun po ang mga address at telephone number po namin. Lahat, pati po kami nila Secretary La Peña sa www.tesda.gov.ph. Pwede din po kayong mag-download. Meron na din po kaming TESDA app from the Apple Store or Google Play so you could easily get information on TESDA programs, especially the scholarships. Meron din po kaming TESDA online program or TAP. Isa ito sa mga programa na mas pinalawig at pinaigting namin. Dati-dati po mga nasa 50 or 60 programs. Ngayon na doble po yan, 101 programs. Meron na din po kami ngayon na tinatawag na micro. We will offer micro or nano programs in partnership with the industry. Kasi yung Philippine Skills Framework po ngayon, ginagawa po namin with TTI and the rest of other agencies and the industry. Doon po kami kukuha ng mga possible na ma-upskilling courses na pwede namin ibigay at ilagay sa TESDA online program also para makita po ng kahit na po yung mga OFWs who wanted to upskill and reskill their skills. Alam niyo po ba na mula nung nangyari yung TESDA online program hanggang ngayon, nagkaroon na po ng 3.5 billion users yung TESDA online program. Kaya ito po yung sabi namin nung lockdown, we are very proud na aside from Netflix, ito po yung pinagkaabalahan ng mga Pilipino.
So in effect ho, DDG, dun sa ating upskilling and reskilling, ang isa sa mga modality na sumikat sa ibang bansa, lalo na sa Australia, Germany, kasama na rin ang Korea at saka Malaysia, yung enterprise-based training. Ngayon sa Pilipinas, bali 4% lang ang share ng modality ito sa ating training sa buong bansa. Paano ho ba natin mapapairal yan? How can we make enterprise-based training work?
Okay. Yung enterprise-based training po is making the enterprise as a delivery mechanism. So, kailangan po namin talaga ng mga ayuda. Ayuda ba yung tawag doon or assistance coming from the industry, from ECOP most specifically, for the industry and companies to have a natural appreciation of what TVET is all about. Kasi ang TVET for me, Sir Anton, is kaya ginawa yung technical vocational education and training is dahil sa mga enterprises. So dapat natural natin na kailangan na mag-train ng mga tao natin. Kaya po namin i-reactivate yung mga industry boards. Kasi ang sinasabi namin, pag walang makapag-gawa ng isang programa dahil kulang sa mga equipment, or mga learning systems ang eskwelahan, papasok po dapat ang partnership naturally ng enterprise-based at TESDA. Hindi ko naman po gustong sabihin na wala tayo talagang partnership. Ang process po kasi ng is even on prioritization of programs kasama natin ng enterprises. Pag-develop po ng mga training regulations, kasama namin ang enterprises. Even po yung mga assessors, there are already a number of assessors coming from the private sector. May mga best practices na po tayo, katulad po ng Constructors Association, yung mga sa construction po. They came up with schools also for them to be able to provide po yung mga workforce nila sa construction sector. We have also Monarch. Tapos yung pong sa Kunsunhi, they have training schools. Even yung sa Gokongwei po, and SM also has training programs. Nestle has training programs with us and partnership with us. We came up also with a memorandum of agreement with PCCI. So even in Cebu, for that matter, ang dami na pong nagawa ng PCCI din ng mga models and experiences that we have documented also. And every time that we speak of enterprise-based training, kahit dun po sa mga technical vocational institutes namin, yung partnership nila, we really provide them with best practices. So, isa pa nga pong best practice namin is yung partnership ng site. Private TVI po yan sa Cebu. Alam ko po yan kasi naging regional director po ako ng Region 7. They have a partnership with industry, yung dual training na tinatawag po. One time, I went there when I am already the Deputy Director General and I asked yung isang bata if kasi nakita ko siya sa isang meeting and he said to me na he is a product of the dual training system. So I was with my staff also. So sabi ko, magkano ang sweldo mo anak? Sabi niya sa akin, ang entry na sweldo ko po was 40,000. So he's earning around 70,000 already at that time. That was 3 years ago. So he is a product of dual training. So sabi ko, bakit sa tingin mo mas malaki ang sweldo mo kaysa dun sa iba na Tibet graduates? Sabi niya kasi hindi na sila masyadong nahirapan sa akin. Because even when I was studying, dahil dual po, the other part is really an authentic work environment. Which means to say, hindi na po ako nahirapan mag-adjust dun sa mga ginagawa ko, habang nag-aaral po ako, nakikita ko na ano yung magiging work environment ko. So, yung isang staff ko po na kasama ko, sabi niya, ma'am, dapat pala nag-techbook na lang ako at nag-dual training kasi mas maganda pala sweldo sa ganyan. The point that I'm driving at is that if we both, TESDA and the industry, would really be able to advocate and promote enterprise-based, malaki po talaga yung potential natin para mas magkaroon ng skilled talaga yung workforce. Kasi nandun sila sa authentic learning environment.
Nabanggit nyo kanina, DDG Rosanna, yung issue ng job skills mismatch. Pwede po bang magbigay ng maiksing paliwanag tungkol sa job skills mismatch issue? At ito ba ay isang malaking suliranin dito sa Pilipinas? At ano naman po ang kinalaman ng demand-led TVET para matugunan itong job skills mismatch issue?
Madami na po kami talaga na nasimulan actually sa TESDA na mga, if not to eradicate, at least try to really make sure that the training programs na aming binibigay sa mga workers as well as sa mga kabataan iswak na swak dun sa job nila. The point that I'm trying to drive at is that even in the preparation po of training regulation, the industry is there, diba? Yung pag-prioritize pa lang at pagsabi ng sa Philippine Development Plan na ito yung tatahakin natin ngayon na focus, and then to have industry consultations on what we really need industry to bolster our economy, nandun po yun sa proseso sa TESDA. Ang paggagawa po din ng training regulation, hindi po TESDA lang ang gumagawa niyan, nagfa-facilitate lang kami, kundi ang industriya. So, kahit pa paano po, confident ako na sabihin na among all other institutions po, kami yung pinakamalapit sa katotohanan doon sa mga pinoprovide po na skills programs kasi kasama namin yung industriya. However, hindi kulang pa rin po yun eh. Bakit? Kasi meron ho tayong ugali sa Pilipino na nagugulat din po kami. For example, there's a demand in welding. So, okay po na magkaroon ng demand pero halos lahat na po ng eskwelahan, welding na ang in-offer. So, nagkaroon po ng saturation point kahit sa tourism. Di ba na lahat na po ng programa, mahilig tayo dyan eh. Parang nauso yung lechon manok o yung pandesal dati. Lahat nagtinda na rin ng lechon manok at pandesal. Primarily, what really wanted was a process in which kahit yung mga nandun po sa baba, it's siguro part of the devolution process that we wanted to empower at the local level is to come up with an area-based demand-driven TVET. Yan po ang aming aspiration talaga. So that we will align our growing skill supply with the shifting skills demand. As we aim to make TVET more agile, responsive, and demand-based to the needs of the localities. Yun po yung gusto namin. We recognize naman na applicable at appropriate po yung mga programa namin and hindi yung one size fits all. We would like to achieve and aspire that TESDA being supply-driven before becomes demand-driven.
Yeah.
We wanted to provide also a clear and purposive scholarship and investment allocation. Gusto po din naming ma-rationalize yung mga targets na sineset namin, lalo na po sa scholarship. Baka bigay kami ng scholarship, at the end of the day, wala naman po mapuntang trabaho, nagbi-build lang kami ng false expectations sa mga tao. And then, of course, we wanted to ensure that our training regulations are being utilized. Hindi yung sinasabi ko nga kanina na gumawa kami ng training regulations sa welding, lahat na naggawa ng welding. And dami naman po namin mga training regulations. Siguro umaabot na po ng 300 to 400, parang 100 pa lang po yung training regulations na nagagamit. So, we would like that thing to happen so that the issue on job skills mismatch in the country may be, if not fully addressed, at least makaagapay naman po tayo sa talagang realidad, yung katotohanan, mas malapit sa katotohanan.
Patapos na po tayo sa episode na to, DDG. Isang tanong na lang at medyo maiksing sagot. Yung para lang mabigyan natin ng diin yung technical vocation, education and training, lalo na yung sa mga involvement ng mga small and medium scale companies. Kasi ang nabanggit nyo kung mga kumpanya na sumasanib sa enterprise-based training ay malalaking kumpanya. At yan talaga, may mga pondo yan. Ang problema natin ngayon, yung mga small and medium scale companies na tinamaan nga ng pandemic, wala nang masyadong development funds yan to train, no? Especially if it's a training that will involve a long-term time frame. So what can the government do, no? Or especially TESDA, to help those who can help others? How can you help the small-scale companies actually get involved in training? Pakisagot lang po, lalo na tungkol sa TVET, how that would be made to play in technical vocation, education, and training. Upskilling and reskilling, TVET, small-scale industries.
Opo, ayan po, in fact, yan yung isa sa component ng 45 million na sinasabi kong kailangan pa namin tuunan ng pansin sa TVET. Kasi nga, yung partnerships namin sa enterprise-based, tama po kayo, yung napupunta po sa malalaking kumpanya. Yung maliliit po, meron pong ginawa ang aming dating Director General, si Senator Joel Villanueva, na isang law, Republic Act 1123 or ang Tulong Trabaho Act. Ito po ay isang kind ng scholarship na nagbibigay po ng focus sa mga small and micro enterprises so that we would be able to have this scholarship na magamit po nila sa training nila in order to also, of course, upgrade their productivity. At yun po, yung magkaroon sila ng reskilling kung meron pong kakailanganin pa na mga technology advancement sa kanilang area. Ito po yung matutulong ng TESDA sa kanila. Inopen na po namin ito. In fact, malami po kami mga guidelines na talagang binend namin in order to really make sure that yung mga micro at small enterprises makasama sa mga programa namin dito sa TESDA. So, I would just like to highlight the coverage of training programs. Industry-specific po to, area-based skills requirements ng ipropropose po ng micro-small enterprises. Magpropose sila, ibig sabihin, they will come up with a proposal to TESDA which would allow them to have a say on what programs would they really want to do? And I highly encourage members of the ECOP to communicate with us, with our TESDA offices on this to really take advantage of this opportunity. TESDA has also made the Tulong Trabaho Scholarship more accessible sa mga micro and small industries po. Kaya nga sinasabi ko sa inyo kanina, na-share ko kanina na we will offer also micro and nano competencies or shorter courses to accommodate workers with study time limitations who are in need of upskilling.
Yeah.
So yun po, basically ang pinakalundo ng Tulong Trabaho Act.
We have run out of time. Deputy Director General Rosanna Urdaneta of TESDA. Thank you for the fruitful discussion, Deputy Director General Rosanna Urdaneta. Now for our next guest, Mr. Stephen Yee, Deputy Executive Director of the Singapore National Employers Federation or SNEF. Good evening, Mr. Stephen. Welcome to ECOPlus, Amplifying Your Voice. Please say hello to our viewers.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Roland and Anton. It is nice of you guys to actually invite me for this session. Thank you.
Good evening, Stephen. Nice to see you again. How has the COVID-19 shaped the world of business and work in Singapore? Has that drastically affected the perception of both workers and employers about skills development per se?
Oh, thank you, Anton. And a good evening one more time to all the guests here in Philippines. Yes, definitely COVID-19 has somehow affected all of us. I think I don't really have to amplify how to the big extent it has, but largely it does affect the employers and the workers. One very good example is that it has also altered the behavior of consumers greatly, where a lot of the business has been pivoted either from an offline to an online aspects of it. And I think there's a great massive of people all have to work from home. In fact, it's the biggest workforce transition from a typical workplace moving into working from home or even at certain areas. And not to mention also that a lot of us actually cut down on all our travels. We no longer need to travel, but we still need to communicate and learn new skills because working from home is definitely a skill that is so different. And likewise, employers actually grapple with the fact of putting in place processes and systems, and there's a big need for people to use virtual kind of meeting, and likewise even try to access it from the data on the cloud. I think a lot of companies are caught with that kind of situation. Now, coming back to the skills part, I think all of us over time, in fact, it's overnight, they have to learn new skills involving the digital aspects of it, and mindful that our workforce has never actually got into the extent of the impact of that to use that skills other than those who have been telecommuting, and that's actually a very small percentage. Lastly, all of us go through a lot of it, and if you ask me about the skills aspects of it, we have to basically learn how to be agile and adaptable. And for that matter, the digital skills, the e-marketing, e-communication skills are skills that are so needed during this period and even into the future.
Yeah, the pandemic has brought apprehension to the workforce across the globe. Many of them fear losing their jobs and are even worried about their skills becoming obsolete because of the pace of digitalization and digitization. How do Singapore employers manage these fears and apprehensions, and what kind of support are they providing to their workforce?
Okay, thank you, Roland. I think the questions has many folds. Let me just try to do it one by one. Now, definitely the fear initially in Singapore was that everyone was very fearful about the extent of the COVID-19, the pandemic. Reason being is that we've been seeing reports that there are so many deaths, people rushing to the hospitals and so on. Yes, I think the first thing that the Singapore government has done, working very closely with the employers, is to secure what we call lives. As we get the data, we are more familiar with it. We start to look at balancing act whereby at the end of the day, it is livelihood. Yes, the Singapore government for the year 2020 has came out with tremendous number of, in fact, total 4 budgets in total, working very closely with employers to still continue to basically going through that crisis. A lot of the business sectors are affected, especially the tourism, the travel, and so on. Yes, there are packages there to basically sustain the employers to keep their workforce intact instead of losing their jobs. Okay, for those who are unfortunately have to basically let go their staff, a lot of measures has been put across closely with the government, working closely with all the employers' organization in Singapore, where we have this SG United internship attachment, we call it, and it lasts almost 9 to a year. Okay, we hope that by doing that, those affected will be able to continue with their job with a heavy subsidy coming from the government and co-pay by the employer, which is only 10% up to a certain cap amount, which is very reasonable. And by doing so, we also take this opportunity to ensure that the workforce takes the opportunity to reskill, upskill themselves to prepare for that more than just the pandemic, but it's also another thing called the disrupted world or using the disrupted technologies. Reason being is that before COVID-19, we have been looking at it, how the disrupted technologies will affect the way we work, which is the future of work, which is actually here already. Okay, it's the new way of working, and also how do we acquire future skills. And companies are evolving. Obviously, the pandemic has helped to exaggerate the whole change, but before that, we already can see that in 2018, late 2018 to 2019, the trend has been moving towards that. So in short, what we have done together with our Singapore government, also together with our union, which is NTUC, the National Trade Union Congress, that we want to develop a culture of learning nation, whereby job, skills, and technology are the 3 important pillars for our workforce in order to support the business growth.
Yes, Stephen. In effect, you have this program called Skills Future, and that has to do with productivity and competitiveness. Can you tell us more about that? Is this still an ongoing program?
Okay, Anton, Skills Future is something that we have started doing even back in the time 2015, 2016, even pandemic. Yes, it's a national movement and it's still going on. Basically, it's the overarching concept of a national movement that provides opportunities for all Singaporeans to develop to their fullest potential at different stages of their life. I think one have to really recognize that in one's working career, you will need to basically change jobs, occupations, or for that matter, even across sectors and even across occupations. So how do we do that? We go through a system of holistic education, starting from the pre-employment training to all the way to what we call the continuing education and training. So yes, it's a suite of product. In it, it has the skills qualification system. It has the skills future credit that anyone in Singapore, Singaporeans, as long as you're Singaporean, age above 25 years and above, even to a very old age, even someone at 85 or 90 who is willing to study, has this personal accounts called the skills future credit, ranging from $500 to $1,000. That's for their own development. Obviously, on top of that, you still have the company-sponsored training grants and the absentee payroll as well. So, and there's a map out of skill standards within the workforce skills qualification system, which we call it WSQ in short.
Yeah, Stephen, you mentioned that Skills Future Singapore was formulated and implemented even prior to the pandemic. But did you make any change significant at that to the contents, the priorities of Skills Future Singapore as a result of the pandemic?
Okay, during the pandemic, I think what is actually in fact, when this skills framework was developed a few years ago, it take into account of the digital skills and the future skills. I think what the pandemic has shaped is things like working from home, the other aspects of it. Those were the auxiliary stuff that adds on to the main skills essentials. So that has not changed. In fact, there's a stronger drive for such an adoption. You see, in the past, we realized that things like flexible work arrangement, okay, telecommuting, digital skills did not pick up as fast as it is. But because of the pandemic, the business model has changed, the behavior of consumers have changed. Things like all of a sudden e-payment, fintech skills, and likewise even for individual to want to basically come forward and learn digital skills, because this is actually the means of continuing with your lifestyle livelihood. I think if you ask me, that is something that has not drastically changed, but rather it helps to speed up the adoption. And obviously we put in a little bit more of things like crisis management and so on. Actually, all these are in there. It's just a matter of because the pandemic, if I use it, has somehow made an accelerating change in the adoption. And there are more people who actually come forward who wants to learn. I think a point here that to be noted is that I think Roland, Anton, I think probably you're aware, I think in Singapore it's a small country. We were trying to push for online e-learning. It didn't really work before the pandemic. But during these 2 years or so, there's a big interest for people to basically continue their learning online, because that is the only option that one can really pick up, and obviously e-learning as well. I think if you ask me, the adoption actually had gone up instead.
Yes, Steve, there was a survey done in Singapore to the effect that workers generally are willing to trade higher salaries in favor of acquiring new skills so that they can leverage this new acquired knowledge for future or more favorable terms at the workplace. Can you tell us more about this, and especially under what context is that being done?
Okay, if you refer that, I think it was a Randstad research done probably, I think, last year. Okay, now, I think there's some truth to that. Let me see, there's some truth to that. In the sense that workers of today, especially the younger ones, you realize that they basically willing to change and want to pick up new skills because they can see that the world is changing, business is reshaping themselves, transforming themselves. They want to be in a sector where it's growing. I think that's important. Yeah. And also a trend, in fact, I was talking to some employers, if they do not pivot the business and make it even more digital time, it's very difficult for them to attract younger workforce. And the younger workforce of today, surprisingly, I do agree with the report to a certain extent. They would want to know what's the nature of the job, what skills that can they acquire. And in fact, we just did survey, and there's a newspaper article report also that companies who invest in their people for new skills training gets a higher revenue, because people today, especially the workforce of today, looks at a package that's important. It has to be decent, but they are willing to actually look at how the company develop personal development plan, or what we call a training plan, for them to basically move up in the career, pick up new skills. I think that's important. Reason being is that this is actually a good time whereby you can probably learn new skills and prepare yourself in advance for a longer runway into your career. I think in Singapore, it is a bit of a phenomenon that also partly with our government policy that our retirement age moves to 65 in 2 years' time. And our re-employment is another 5 more years. And average Singaporeans works into the mid 65 to 70, and some even continue working as long as they are productive and they want to work. I think we are facing also a slightly different situation whereby we value workforce regardless of age, as long as they have the skills, the relevant skills.
You have a very robust and dynamic tripartism in Singapore. I'd like to know, Stephen, why multi-stakeholder involvement is very important in skills development, and how does the employer sectors through SNEF and the trade union movement collaborate with government, specifically in the area of skills development?
Okay. First and foremost, Roland, I think in Singapore, I think we are fortunate that we have a very strong tripartite relationships. If you realize that the tripartite group actually comes together to engage and look at problems on hand and even into the future. Example like our National Jobs Council, our future councils, future of work councils, and so on. And even within SNAP, NTUC, and even the government as a whole, we plan ahead and we always look into a 5-10 years plan. I think testimonial will be things like our skills framework, our industry transformation map. That's how we basically come together. In fact, there are tons of information of reference material that a company can look at it. It's sometimes to the extent of too much hard to decipher. That's the reason why staff and NTUC, we have our own social dialogue with our members, trying to get them to understand the what and the why. In fact, now most of them are coming to us for how to implement it, how to put in place. I think these are things that we are doing, and hopefully with that, a stronger harmonization will happen. And whether you like it, I think in Singapore, our currency is always our workforce. And the skills development part is something that the world is also looking for and is important. In fact, the employers are looking for. And by doing so, we hope that we have less of this mismatch out there, to the extent that we work very closely with the Institute of Higher Learning, the Polytechnic and the University, to make sure that at the end of the day, whatever is being covered, that it involves a certain set of skill sets that's needed for the future, other than the academic aspects of it. And they will also rope in to offer what we call stackable qualifications for their alumni, so that people who are graduated, when they are into the workforce, they can continue to do what we call continuous education and training. And lastly, we are focusing a lot on skills rather than just the qualification alone. So it's skills attainment that is so important, that every of our cert that we issue out carries with us a certain competency that attain. I think that is something that we have been all the while doing for the last 15 years, and now it is getting fruits of that, and we would like to continue doing it. Reason being is that the world has shifted it in such a way that other than just qualification, it is the skills, the relevant skills, the updated skills. Okay, it's moving so fast that a report that came out from, I think it's from McKinsey, that if you don't get yourself learning new skills for the next 14 months, you will probably lose 30 or 40% of the skill sets that you have that is become outdated or obsoleted. So I think these are things that we have been grabbing. It's moving very fast. Luckily, we are a small nation, but again, we are being blessed with the fact that we have a very strong tripartism model in Singapore, obviously with other stakeholders, the trade unions, the chambers, and as well as the other parties as well, which will include all the Institute of Higher Learning as well.
What kind of support programs do you give furthering skills development and at the same time as also lifelong learning processes? Can you mention specific programs and services?
Okay.
That you
And maybe
are you looking
from the
government
point
side, or you're looking from the
the
side?
Singapore National Employers
yes.
Federation.
from your
Yeah,
viewpoint.
okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank
Singapore
you.
National Employers Federation, we actually have a program called the Sapphire, where we craft in causes where we seek funding from the government to basically offer it to our employers at large, especially our members, where it has heavily funded training programs. And then there's also things like cost fees funding and so on. We also run very specific programs, like career conversion programs, working very closely with another government agency called the Workforce Singapore, whereby we help employers to hire people from another sector or another occupation moving to a totally different sector or occupation. Reason being is that, pandemic has caused a very major displacement of workforce. So because of the shortage of staff and also the skill sets, we actually did what we call a career conversion program for specific job functions whereby company can actually tap onto that, not only for the newly hired staff to learn new skills, but also with some salary support coming from the government as well. These are things that we have been working all the while, even before the pandemic. Just that during this last 2 years, it has intensified. We also get involved training up the business leaders and the HR leaders in also areas like, especially the HR leaders, what we call job redesign. Okay, we also have a job redesign consultancy work that we help companies to work closely with people like Mercer, Ernst & Young, and some local consulting firm to basically help the HR or even the SMEs where they do not have the HR, working closely with their business leader and line managers to job redesign, to make the job attractive and see what are the training gaps, learning gaps needed to address so that they can basically put in place a good, effective job description and learning plan so that they can attract and groom their internal, either attract external, newly hired, or even internal moving up the career. So these are things that we have been doing intensively for the last 2 to 3 years.
Thank you, Stephen. Looking at the ASEAN as a whole, if you may share with us your viewpoint on what do you think are industries that would help propel the ASEAN economy as a whole? If you can share with us your viewpoint on that.
Okay. Anton, I think thanks for the question. Let me try to answer that question. Now, I think ASEAN as a whole has 10 member states. I think all of us progress differently. Our literacy levels are different, but I think we all share something in common where I think we need to basically look at developing our workforce. How do we basically share resources? I think we're talking about human resources, whereby there's still a very long way to go when it comes to mutual recognition of skills. The other thing that I was thinking that instead of trying to look at that, any possibility that within ASEAN, where the employers, members organization come closely together to identify causes that we can share together, where we co-create, co-own the IPs, and we deliver it over a Zoom platform, let's say, for example, a virtual platform, making it synchronous e-learning. We're no longer bounded by the cost of travel anymore, and we make it an ASEAN product, whereby probably ASEAN Confederation of Employers should look at that. And we each of us come up with one product and we cross-sell and we work out a certain business model arrangement. And that way we can basically do what we call cross-fertilization of idea, a cross-leveraging of resources and so on. I mean, I always feel that within ASEAN, if the employers organization can all come together, each identify a program, and then we can basically create the demand and also drive the skills and development, and also over time the employability. Now, I think the world has changed in such a way that some of the work can be done offshore, not necessarily to be within the country. But can ASEAN come together to develop certain kinds of skill sets that commonly is needed and is still lacking in it? An example, let me give you an example, the Infocom skills, the ICT skills, Infocom and digital skills or communication skills. Now, these are things that are so heavily demanded within ASEAN. For one very obvious reason, the e-commerce business is going to be booming like crazy within ASEAN, and all the member states in ASEAN are actually dying in need of talent in this area. So the ICT sector is something that we can look at, and also probably the finance sector as well. So I think it is only to get to the extent of coming together to look at each country offering one course. We have 10 member states, let's say, and in total we have 10 courses that we can offer back to the ASEAN employers. Okay, and that will basically hopefully drive a certain movement within ASEAN with regards to skills and also employability as well.
Thank you very much, Stephen, for sharing your thoughts, ideas, and insights on skills development. It's always a pleasure talking to you.
And thank you, Roland and Tom. Thank you for inviting me to attend the session here. It is nice of you to basically allow me to share on the areas of skills and employability. And I do really look forward to be able to work closely with the ASEAN member state, especially starting from Philippines. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we proceed to our last guest for tonight, mga ka-ECOP, we will be right back after this segment.
PhilWen believes that effective collaboration with like-minded organizations is key to pursuing advocacies for workplace gender equality, women's economic empowerment, and diversity and inclusion. ECOP and PhilWen's work in the business sector are aligned. We work with companies through evidence-based strategies, capacity-building activities, and tools for workforce development. Our membership in ECOP and our role as co-chair of the Revived Diversity and Inclusion Committee is a testament to the importance of D&I in business and socio-economic development. As the voice of Filipino employers, we in PhilWen are committed to support ECOP in creating workplaces that are enabling and thriving. Through our partnership, we wish to influence other business organizations to be our allies. We look forward to continuing this collaboration with you.
And we're back. Welcome again to ECOPlus, Amplifying Your Voice. I am Jose Roland Moya, and allow me to introduce our last guest for tonight, Mr. Jos van Erp, a special advisor of the Dutch Employers Cooperation Program, or DECP. Hello, Jos. Welcome to ECOPlus, Amplifying Your Voice. Please say hello to the viewers of ECOPlus, Amplifying Your Voice.
Of course. Good evening, everybody. It's my honor to be in your show tonight and to share some thoughts about skills development in particular, because, well, at one hand, that is my field of expertise over the last 20-25 years in the Netherlands and abroad. And I like to exchange experiences and ideas with representatives of employers' organizations in countries all over the world. My area of specialism is West Africa, but I am working together with my colleagues of DECP all over the world, and I have had the honor to be with you in Manila for several times, doing some training together and sharing experiences. Thank you very much.
Jos, good evening. This is Anton Sayo. Our first query with you is, we know for a fact that the Netherlands is one of the old economies that has, where the guilds and apprenticeships have worked very well. Can you share with us what is the importance of reskilling and upskilling, and of course the lifelong learning in the country's path towards economic development, and of course via competitiveness, productivity increases, etc.? Can you tell us about it? Thank you.
I will be happy to do so, Anton. Thank you very much for this question. What we see in the Netherlands, that is that employers and employees should be highly in balance as far as responsibility and ownership of the company is concerned, because employers and employees both depend on the competitiveness of the company and of the growth of the company. It is their job, is their salary, if we talk in terms of employees, and it is the economic growth if we talk in terms of employers. Now we see that the world is getting more global and open. That's one thing. We have more digital tools which help us. We have more flexibility of work, and especially we do not have any more single tasks for people. So people should take responsibility and should be able to take responsibility for the tasks they have and the changes which are there. thus getting more complex, which means that you're not ready when you finalize your vocational education or something like that. Lifelong learning should be a second nature of people. It's not a lifelong punishment. It's a lifelong, I would say, a present for employment. And being part of a company means sharing responsibility. We cannot predict the future. We can only follow developments which are there, and we should get ready for it. In terms of competencies, and if we talk about competencies, it's knowledge, it is skills, and it is attitude. And these three elements of competence should be developed all the time. The best thing, in my opinion, is that employees themselves are able to define their learning objectives and share them with their employer.
Yeah, Jos, can you cite some good examples or models of skills development initiatives that have made a difference or probably transformed the countries that the Dutch Employers Cooperation Program worked or has been working with in the past few years?
Thank you very much for this question, Roland. I worked out two examples which are successful, I would say. One is in Mongolia, and you might know that in Mongolia, one of the sectors which is upcoming is the meat processing sector, which has a high potential. And a lot of companies, which are actually SME companies, most of them in Mongolia, they suffer from the fact that they experience a gap of skills. Now, you can, let's say, live with the fact that there is a certain gap of skills, but you can try to overcome it as well. And together with the employers organization, a dialogue has been started with the schools for vocational education and training, which actually means that the young entrants, the new people getting into labor market, get in contact at a very early stage with this important economic sector. Now, the ECP is encouraging the exchange of information between meat companies where the demand of competencies and the changing demand of competencies is studied and shared with the schools for vocational education and training. Now, if you ask something from schools, you should offer them something as well. And one of the things which can be offered by companies is, for example, guaranteed internships with a high level of quality. So being part of the learning process of youngsters. This starts to work out very well, which means that if we talk about high quality internships, you should define exactly what it is, what are the responsibilities in the receiving company, and what are the responsibilities of the school. Now, another example is in West African small country Togo, where about 15 companies in the harbor area, who more or less even are a little bit competing with each other, they all experience a lack of skills actually. It's not a quantitative matter because there are a lot of people, but they are not well skilled. What they said is, okay, for now we accept the fact that vocational education and training in particular is not responding really to our demands, but we engage youngsters, about 70 or 80, in our companies after having finished their school. And they build up their own training center to combine learning and working for about another year. Now, those students who are in practice in these companies and trained by the expert of the companies on equipment of the companies, after 1 year, these 15 companies engage about 40 or 50 of these youngsters if they have these vacancies. If they do not have, about 20 or 30 will leave this project, but SMEs in the area are happy to have them in their companies because they know that these youngsters are very well skilled. This is a second example which I consider to be successful.
Jos, going to the pandemic, COVID-19, this has accelerated the pace of the fourth industrial revolution, digital transformation and all. What has happened is remote work has become one of the norms and an important component of a functioning economy. Do you see more and more employers embracing remote work? What kind of workplaces do you see going in the near future?
Thank you very much. Of course, this pandemic reunions the people all over the world. It's a worldwide pandemic. That is why it's called pandemic, which means that a lot of companies, if I stick to the Netherlands, which in some economic sectors is quite conservative as well, who did not accept the fact that very much they did not embrace remote working, now they are forced to. And this is a worldwide development. So we are very happy worldwide as well that everybody has Wi-Fi, everybody has can make use of computers and so on and so on. But it requires other competencies, especially in the matter of attitude, I would say. It is the experience of ownership at one hand of the employee and responsibility given from the employer to the employee to decide themselves on the work to do at what moment. Now, it's not that easy to define what kind of sectors in particular it is in, but for example, my wife is working in a hospital as a specialized nurse. She goes to her job every day because she has to be there. But in this hospital, 4,000 people are employed, of which approximately 800 are working at home, which more or less sticks to let's say the office jobs. If I take myself as an example, normally before COVID, I went to my office 50 miles away from where I live to switch on my computer. Now I can do the same at home. I switch on my computer and we can work, So it is another way of working. It is even more the balance between employee and employers if we talk about, at one hand, feeling the responsibility and ownership of being part of the success of your company. And it is the responsibility of an employer to give this freedom to employees and to have trust in them. Now, you can only trust your employer if you feel you are part of the success, And no matter if we talk about office jobs, if we talk about health institutes, if we talk about engineering, we were already used to having engineers in Romania working for Dutch companies, sending over their results in data to the Netherlands to be manufactured, at a high level of advanced technology. And this process goes on. Personally, I think that the future, when the impact of the pandemic is reduced a little bit, will be a more balance between working at home and working at the workplace. So the world has changed a little bit, but to the best, because we have less traffic jams in the Netherlands, and this should be a blessing for all urban areas in the world, I would say, for environment. So there's a lot of positive effects which will be there, but it requires other competencies at the side of employees, and it requires another attitude of employers. And I think that employer organizations can be very helpful to identify them and to help companies to, let's say, to switch to this new economy.
What kind of skill sets are employers looking for right now, and how should workers respond to these new requirements?
Well, we always tend, of course, to stick to digital developments, and that is one truth. I agree immediately. I had Skype in my computer and I had Teams in my computer before the pandemic, but I hardly used it, or I didn't use it, and I didn't know how to use it. So this is a very simple example of developing skills very quickly under pressure, I would say. But I would immediately add to that, it is not only digital skills which are required. The world is getting smaller and smaller in terms of communication. I'm in contact now with you guys in the Philippines at the other end of the world, and I'm working in Africa, which is my field of expertise. I haven't been there for 2 years. I'm very happy to go there in a month for the first time since the pandemic, but we could continue doing our work together for reasons of trusting each other, having confidence, and being able to work out new ideas. Just imagine, either you're in Manila or you're in Africa, but everybody is connected to the world. And so it is about entrepreneurship as well, seeing new chances, being able to redefine new ideas, so being innovative. Not only employers themselves, but the employees as well. We all contribute to the success of a company and to the competition. And competition is getting stronger and stronger worldwide. So depending on the resources we have in one country or in one region, we should consider and reconsider how can we benefit from that in such a way that people are not harmed. And so we talk about decent jobs.
Used with the digital transformation and with this technology rapidly changing, there is a concern that skills mismatch would be exacerbated. And in fact, there's going to be massive job losses in certain industries. Would digital transformation, in fact, exacerbate the skills gap?
The answer should be having some nuances. I agree that the digital transformation is already it is having jobs lost, that's for sure. At one hand, jobs are lost, but at the other hand, new jobs are entering labor market. I'm not very pessimistic. I'm optimistic about the developments I see in digital transformation. We got a lot of more opportunities. And yes, at one hand, jobs are lost, but at the other hand, I see that new jobs are created. So I see this as a kind of a balance. You know, the word sabotage comes from a French word in the first industrial revolution, when the French workers in the mining industry and the iron industry, they lost their jobs because their jobs were replaced by machines. And they threw their wooden shoes, which is called sabot, into the machines to show to their employers that they could not do without them. And sabot is this wooden shoe, so it was sabotage. Now, what we have seen is that these workers got other jobs to continue the development of industry. And personally, I think that the world benefits from new developments, either robotizing, either big data, either the Internet of Things. At the other hand, we will find, and there are already examples of new jobs which will be created. And yes, we should at any moment identify what these developments are in order to get prepared for them. There will never be a balance. It's like the sea, the water is going up and it's going down. It's never in balance, but we should try to switch the right buttons to be prepared for the future.
Yeah, Jos, I'd like to go to this issue on enterprise-based training. Why is enterprise-based training very important, and what is in it for employers, whether they be large or even small enterprises, to embrace enterprise-based training? And how will this enterprise-based training solve the skills mismatch problem?
I like this question very much, Roland, because it's a really important issue. When I go back in the Netherlands, when I started working about 35 years ago in technology industry, employers were reluctant to develop enterprise-based training because they said, if I invest in people and they run away, others will benefit from my investment. And actually, nobody moved. After a development period of, let's say, 10 or 15 years, every employer was conscious about the fact that you should invest in employees, because if you invest now, you will have the return on investment soon. Even if they run away, you will hire other people who come from other companies there has been invested as well. That's one thing. So the employers benefit of investing in people. Roughly, it's said that 3% of the turnover should be put back into the human resources, actually, one way or another. Successful companies have proven that they invest in their people. Now, that's what's in it for the employers. But if we talk about the employees, of course, some of the enterprise-based trainings are really specialized in this one particular company. But already there they benefit, because people who don't forget how to learn and how to define their own learning objectives, they will be able to learn for the rest of their life, even if they switch to another company in a completely different sector. So you benefit in your company because you can do your work better, you can do your work with more fun, with more efficiency, making less mistakes, things like that, being an expert in your own company. And at the same moment, if we define together, so employers and employees, the learning objectives in terms of competencies, knowledge, skills, and attitude, it is something which will be there for the rest of your life, building up your complete set of competencies. So it is about lifelong learning, it is about lifelong development, it is about doing your work properly, but it's about contributing to the success of your current company, employer as well. as for the employer of the future. And generally said, I would say that lifelong learning is the basis of a growing economy as a whole.
Yeah, just focusing back on the relationship between employers and trade unions in pursuing social dialogue. One of the areas that is difficult to find consensus on is skills development, because there are those that are short-term in nature and those that are long-term in nature. And it's exactly one of the reasons why enterprise-based training has not gotten off the ground in the country, with enterprise-based training accounting only for 4% of total training modalities. So what do you think, where can consensus be attained in the area of skills development between the trade unions and the employer sectors?
Yeah, I feel that the relationship between employer representatives and trade unions is very, very important, because they both represent the balance of this two-side thing, which is the growth of companies and which is employment. Now, in social dialogue, skills development and social dialogue at least should contain, in my opinion, the right of employees to be trained, to receive skills development in one way or another. And at the same moment, it should convince employers to facilitate the learning process. Now, to be clear, learning and teaching is not just a matter of putting people back into school, you know. There are a lot of learning interventions possible, which, for example, can be working on the learning on the workplace, which requires a learning coach in the company, which most of the time is a person who has a lot of expertise in this company and who has some understanding of defining learning objectives and how to define learning processes and to discuss them with the learner. Now, social dialogue on this issue should, let's say, lead to some rough, I would say, measurements or laws in that, but not too much. If we express it only in figures like percentage and so on, it could give a direction, but it's more important that it is really done into practice. Now, a good relationship between employers and trade unions, I would say, is a matter of trust, is a matter of being convinced together and convincing each other with good arguments why lifelong learning is so important, and that the employer has a role in that, has a function in that, and that the employee has the right on it. So again, it's not a punishment to learn and to develop, but it's a right as well. So this should be shared by both employers and employees, and I think that employers' organizations and trade unions at least should, let's say, discuss this issue and find a way out to both contribute to the economic growth of companies, of sectors, and finally of the country.
You're still on social dialogue. What is the role of government in bringing about consensus on skills development between employers and the trade union movement? And what tangible assistance and support should the government extend to promote a more dynamic, responsive, and demand-driven TVET system?
I'm so happy that you're asking this question, Roland, because this is a universal one. No matter if you study the Philippines, if you study the Netherlands, if you study Finland, or if you study Nigeria, we see that there always should be a balance between employers, organizations, employees, representatives, and the government. And the government should have a role and take this role. And this role is not to define completely, for example, what curricula are of TVET schools, which happens all over the world. They should take their role, yes. They should, let's say, define the rough picture of curricula which are there. But, and there I think that the Netherlands are doing quite well, if I may say so. Companies and schools are allowed to define at least 30% of the curricula of TVET programs, which means that there is a kind of a basis which should be the same everywhere. If you talk about mechanics, there are some laws which are universal, you know, should just learn them, and there are some skills to learn how to manage it. But even in a small country like the Netherlands, if we're talking about the north part of our small country, their specialism is on electricity and energy manufacturing and distribution. If we talk about the west part like Rotterdam, we're talking about transportation and logistics, which is a completely different aspect of it. In the south, we are specialized in high technology manufacturing of machines. Now, schools are allowed regionally to define at least 30% of their curricula together with companies. And that is what the government facilitates. And at one hand, it's a law that schools should have an advisory board of employers in their school. And these employers are not defining themselves the curriculum, but they are defining together with the school management the curriculum, which is oriented on regional expertise, I would say. And that is allowed by the Dutch government by law. And they are part of that, but they are not pushing it, so they still define a big part of the curricula, but another part of it can move all the time. So at least there should be 3 or 4 meetings a year to try to predict the near future, and how should curricula be dynamic and move all the time and try to anticipate even on near future developments. So these are parts that can make, so this tripartite dialogue can make curricula dynamic and make them move towards the future, so that we train young people not to work in a museum, but to work in companies of the future.
Yeah, Jos, we have run out of time, and I will ask Anton to put forward the last question.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, you know the country, the Philippines, and the realities here. What advice can you give us to respond to this pandemic in a way where we address the issue of skills mismatch, competitiveness, and productivity?
Thank you very much, Anton. I'm not a magician, but the Philippines is very different from the Netherlands. Like, it's a huge country with a lot of isles and a lot of distances to go over. But I would say, together invest in future technology, near future technology, I would say. We can dream about what internet can bring in the far away future, and robotizing and big data and so on. But what are tomorrow's needs? And how can we fill in a hybrid world, which is the world of working? So a blended world, I would say, where people work on the workplace, where people partly, and where people work at home. The same goes for teaching and learning. How can we benefit actually from the fact that we have learned now to work on distance, that we work through online methods as well? I am a teacher as well, a guest teacher at some universities in Belgium and France, and I applied together with a lot of people, due to the pandemic, the blended version. And it works. When I do training in class, I have the possibility to facilitate and to moderate individual students a little bit later, just by switching on my computer and having a discussion with them one-on-one, even with 500 kilometers in between. And I think that the benefits of that, we should try to benefit from the benefits actually from the pandemic. So never stop learning, and especially keep that dialogue alive. The dialogue between employers, organizations, and trade unions and the government. Involve everybody as a same part and the same weight in the discussion. Respect each other's vision, even if it's different, even if the interest might be different. Try to find the things you have in common. That would be my message for every country, and so it's my message for the Philippines. Wishing you economic growth, employment for all the people, if possible, and a healthy future.
Your acceptance of our invitation to be part of this show is much appreciated. There's a time difference between the Philippines and the Netherlands, and it may have cost you some discomfort or inconvenience. But we thank you very much, Jos, for your time. Much appreciated. So keep safe, and good night.
Thank you, Jos.
Thank you very much. Good night. Bye-bye.
Let's have a short break for ECOPlus, Amplifying Your Voice Netizens Q&A.
Interested in getting familiar with the single and official voice of Philippine employers? Want to stay updated on the latest news and trends on labor and social policy issues? By becoming a member of ECOP, you can have access to all of these and many more. Explore the benefits of joining ECOP. ECOP provides its members with a comprehensive range of services that includes training, advocacy, and information through seminars, research publications, and networking. The ECOP Help Desk provides assistance to members who may have questions or concerns on issues regarding human resource management, HRM, industrial relations, IR, and occupational safety and health. OSH. Managed and operated internally using ECOP facilities and technical staff, the help desk can be easily accessed through multiple platforms. We regularly conduct free webinars to keep our constituents in the business community abreast with the latest and upcoming developments on industrial relations, social policies, and related topics. Aside from free webinars, we offer to members big discounts in our public training programs, seminars, and workshops on IR, HR, OSH, and a lot more. Philippine employers are represented by ECOP in various tripartite bodies. ECOP's participation in congressional hearings and other policy consultations ensures that the voice of employers is articulated, heard, and acted upon. As a member, you can network and join events that bring together company representatives to discuss developments and issues on industrial relations and human resources management through our members' general meeting, MGM. Aside from this, you can attend, discover ECOP, an interactive forum organized for members and non-members alike to familiarize them with ECOP's advocacies, activities, and programs. An overview of pending labor bills in Congress and proposed policy issuances discussed in the Technical Executive Committee of the Department of Labor and Employment are usually presented. We provide a learning and sharing platform among representatives of our member companies through our ECOP networks. ECOP Networks has 3 fields of specialization, which are Industrial Relations and Human Resources, IR/HR, Occupational Safety and Health, OSH, and Corporate Social Responsibility and Responsible Business Conduct, CSR, RBC. As a member company, your management or HR representatives will have the opportunity to receive full overseas technical scholarship on topics such as industrial relations, human resource management, and occupational safety and health organized in Japan. ECOP also organizes the annual National Conference of Employers, where our members enjoy discounts when participating. Lastly, you will enjoy other benefits such as up-to-date, informative e-bulletin and research publications. We provide our members up-to-date and relevant news, studies and statistics gathered from reputable agencies, as well as trends and practices directly collected from various industries. Our members can enjoy 50% discount on research publications such as Corporate Compensation Survey and CBA Report. Free conferences, workshops, or seminars by invitation through ECOP special projects. Exclusive access to members-only page in the ECOP website, where you can review different project tools, documents, copies of position papers, minutes of committee meeting, and loads of other records. ECOPlus, Amplifying Your Voice, is ECOP's digital television program that airs regularly in various social media platforms. The program discusses ECOP's advocacies and programs. It also features interviews with employers, practitioners and policymakers on current, evolving and future workplace issues. Airs twice a month, 5:30 p.m., on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. As our members continue to grow their businesses, ECOP will always continue its mandate of protecting the interest and advocating the welfare of the business community. Discover the many ways you can support your business or enterprise today. Join the Employers Confederation of the Philippines. Your partner. Your advocate. The single and official voice of the Philippine employers on labor and social policy issues.
Anton, we are now in the ECOPlus Netizens Corner segment of the show. Let's take a question from our netizens from ECOP's social media account. This one is a question posted in ECOP FB page, and let me read the question. Hi ECOP, I am Tyrone, a graduating college student. Wala pa po akong experience at malawak na competence sa paghahanap ng trabaho. Paano ko ba gagawing employable ang aking sarili? Where do I begin? Para naman linya ng kanta ito, Anton.
Para nanliligaw.
Yeah, bakit pwede bang sagutin mo yung katanungan ni Tyrone, Anton?
Alam mo, Tyrone, hindi naman tayo lahat expert talaga sa ganitong bagay. Pero ang maya advice lang namin sa iyo, unang-una, dapat alam mo yung diferensya ng soft skills at saka hard skills. Yung soft skills, sa maraming kumpanya, napaka-importante niya, napakahalaga. Yung nakakapag-communicate ka ng mabuti, yung etiquette mo, yung tinatawag nilang gentleman's conduct, importante yon. Pag may matanda dyan, binubuksan mo yung pinto, maski na hindi matanda, kahit na sino, magalang ka, mga importante yan. Yung hard skills, yan yung mga natuturo na pwede mong i-measure, pwede mong, productivity is a measurement of a person's capability to do things. Yun yung, yung magaling ka magtrabaho, matyaga ka. So, kailangan alam mo kung ano yung kakayanan mo at ano yung mga pwede mo pang ayusin, improve upon. At sa digital transformation, madali na naman mag-research, madali na naman mag-benchmark. No? So, yan lang.
Anton, kanina binanggit ni Deputy Director General Rosanna Urdaneta yung mga programs na ino-offer ng TESDA at ito ay makikita mo rin doon sa kanilang website.
Tama.
So, hindi na kailangan yung face-to-face training dahil maaari kang makakuha ng skills doon sa mga TESDA training courses na ino-offer online. Kailangan maging matyaga lang tayo sa pag-search ng nararapat na training program para sa atin. Pero
ang ECOP meron din, di ba?
Yeah, ang ECOP meron ding soft skills training at maaari mong bisitahin ang website ng ECOP para malaman mo kung ano yung pwede course, kung saan pwede kang mag-enroll. So, pwera sa TESDA, meron pa ring mga makikita kang courses sa online. Siyempre sa internet at yung iba dito ay may bayad pero karamihan ay wala nang bayad.
Kadalasan, sa TESDA.
Na ito.
Marami silang training regulations. Yun yung mga meron kang certificate na makukuha. At kadalasan yan, may mga scholarship programs sila in specific training regulations.
That's right. So, Tyrone, sana nasagot ni Anton yung katanungan mo at nakapagdagdag din ako dun sa mga binanggit ni Anton. For our netizens, kanina binanggit namin ang ECOPlus question for the day na dapat abangan para manalo ng premyo. Ito po ang ECOPlus question for the day. Ano ang ibig sabihin ng acronym na TESDA? TESDA. Dito, Deputy Director General, yung isa sa ating mga bisita kanina, si DDG Rosanna Urdaneta. Anton, paano ba sasagutan ang ECOPlus question for the day?
Ito ang mechanics. I-comment ang sagot sa Facebook account ng ECOP, #ECOPlus Amplifying Your Voice, space, your answer, space, anong title ng episode na ito. Don't forget to like and share an episode na ito sa ECOP Facebook page. Ang mapipiling mananalo ay ino-notify sa ECOP Facebook page at bibigyan namin ng instructions paano makuha ang premyo.
Maraming salamat sa viewers ng ECOPlus Amplifying Your Voice. Thank you very much also to our netizens, especially to Tyrone, for asking your question in the netizens Q&A. Sana nasagot ni Anton ang iyong tanong, Tyrone. Huwag kalimutan sagutin ang tanong sa Q&A at i-like at share ang episode na ito para manalo ng premyo. Mga ka-ECOP, I'm your host, Jose Roland Moya, with my co-host,
Anton Sayo. See you every other Monday at 5:30 p.m. sa next episode ng
ECOPlus Amplifying Your Voice. Stay safe
and God bless everyone.